like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, let's dive in. We're breaking down the Lions' Monday Night Football win over the 49ers. Did you catch this one?
Hard to miss, right?
Definitely a game that had people talking. Even if you're not a diehard Lions fan, their offense was something else. We've got this great NFL.com article breaking down the key plays, and, well, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, they really put on a show. Offense was firing on all cylinders.
So they put up over 40 points for the 5th time this season.
Pretty remarkable.
And no turnovers. Not a single one. Is that even sustainable? Like, historically, where does this kind of offensive performance even rank?
It's up there. Definitely puts them in the conversation with some of the all-time great offenses. But the real question is, can they keep this up when they face those tougher defenses in the playoffs?
Right. It's not like the 49ers D is a pushover or anything.
No, not at all.
And I mean, even in this game, the Lions had some drives stall out. They had to settle for field goals a couple times.
Yeah.
Does that, like, hint at any vulnerabilities? Or is that just, a team still kind of finding its rhythm?
It's something to keep an eye on for sure. As we get closer to the playoffs, I mean, the best teams, they can execute consistently. Even when things get a little messy.
Yeah.
Those stalled drives could come back to haunt them against a team that can, capitalize on those mistakes.
For sure. Okay, one thing that definitely wasn't a mistake. That hook and lateral play with Jameson Williams.
Oh.
Talk about electrifying.
What a play.
Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, take a bow.
Yeah, brilliant design, perfectly executed. Shows you Johnson's not afraid to, take some risks, trust his players to make the play.
Right.
But I wonder, does this tell us something bigger about the NFL right now? Are we seeing trick plays making a comeback, more coaches going for that creative, unpredictable style?
I think so, yeah. Feels like offensive coordinators are getting more, daring, more willing to pull out those surprise plays, especially in those big games.
Yeah, especially when you have a weapon like Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
That speed.
Yeah.
Those plays become even more dangerous.
Exactly. And it's not just Williams either. Jahmyr Gibbs. The guy was a beast out there, 117 rushing yards and a touchdown. It feels like he's really starting to hit a stride now.
He's special, that's for sure. The way he breaks tackles, makes defenders miss. It's impressive. But honestly, what really stood out to me was his vision, his patience. He's not just relying on speed,
Right.
He's setting up his blocks, finding those holes, even when they're not obvious.
And got to give Goff some credit too, right? Smart decisions, spreading the ball around, hitting his receivers with, pinpoint accuracy.
Absolutely. Goff's consistency has been huge for the Lions this season. He's not always flashy, but he makes the plays he needs to make, doesn't turn the ball over. That's gold in today's NFL.
Okay, so we've talked about the Lions offense. It's a force. What about the 49ers, though? They weren't just, rolling over out there. They had their moment, put some real pressure on the Lions, especially early on.
Yeah, and what I found interesting was how Kyle Shanahan, their head coach, he was able to scheme around some of those missing pieces. Remember, they were without Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason.
Oh, right. 2 key players in their run game.
Huge losses.
So how did they adapt to that?
Well, Shanahan, he's a master at exploiting matchups. He did a great job of getting Ricky Pearsall involved right away. And they leaned heavily on the passing game. George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, they made some big plays. It really shows you their offensive versatility, how they could adjust on the fly and still be effective.
But in the end, it wasn't enough. What was the turning point for you?
I'd have to say it was Kirby Joseph's interception of Brock Purdy in the 3rd quarter. That shifted the momentum, gave the Lions a chance to pull ahead.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is it was set up by a pretty subtle defensive adjustment. The Lions disguised their coverage, baited Purdy into making a risky throw.
That's what separates the good from the great, right? Those in-game adjustments, being able to counter what the other team's doing.
Exactly. It's chess. And the Lions were one step ahead in that moment. But got to factor in those 49ers personnel issues too. If they had McCaffrey and Mason healthy, who knows? Maybe they could have established a stronger run game, controlled the clock a bit more. Tough to say for sure, but it's definitely something to think about. What do you think? Could that have changed the outcome?
Tough to speculate, but yeah, I think it definitely would have made things more challenging for the Lions. A balanced offense is so crucial, especially against a team that can score like the Lions.
For sure.
If you can keep their offense off the field, you have a better chance of staying in the game.
Absolutely. Classic case of what if. But for the Lions, it was a massive win, especially with that Vikings game coming up, NFC North title on the line.
Right. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room. The Lions' defense. It's been a concern all season, hasn't it?
It has, and for good reason.
Yeah.
They've been hit hard by injuries, leaves them thin at some pretty key positions. Not a lot of room for error.
But even with those weaknesses, they forced some big turnovers against the 49ers, especially those 2 interceptions by Kirby Joseph. Is that a sign of resilience? Or just, the 49ers making mistakes?
A bit of both, I think. The Lions' D definitely has its flaws, but they're playing with a lot of heart, a lot of hustle.
Yeah.
They're not giving up on plays, and they're making the most of their opportunities.
And those turnovers, they're huge in today's NFL.
Game changers.
Absolutely. They can swing the momentum in an instant.
For sure.
Yeah.
But can they really count on those turnovers every game? That seems risky, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And what about their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn? Think he can come up with some schemes, some magic to work around these personnel issues?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Glenn, he's a good coach, but he's got his work cut out for him. He's got to get creative, find ways to generate pressure with his front four.
Yeah.
Because if they can't disrupt the quarterback, it's going to be tough sledding against those elite offenses.
So what you're saying is, even though the Lions have been winning this defense, it could really hold them back when they get to the playoffs.
It's a legitimate concern. You need a complete team to win a championship, right? And right now, the Lions are leaning hard on that offense.
Yeah.
They've shown they can win shootouts, but can they, grind out a tough defensive battle against a team like, say, the Eagles, the Cowboys?
Those are the matchups that'll really test them. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute. Jake Moody. Even the best have bad days, right?
Sure do.
But this one was rough.
Yeah, it was a tough night for him, no doubt. Missing those field goals, especially those crucial ones, and then the botched onside kick.
Oof.
Not exactly what you want to see from your kicker.
It really makes you appreciate the pressure these guys are under, huh?
Oh, yeah.
One bad game, and your job's on the line. High-stakes position, especially for a team with Super Bowl aspirations.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet, but it's something the 49ers are going to have to look at in the offseason. Maybe bring in some competition, find someone a little more consistent in a league where every point matters.
Yeah.
You can't afford to leave points on the field.
Right. Okay, back to the Lions. Huge game coming up against the Vikings. NFC North title at stake. What are you thinking? Can the Lions keep this momentum going, lock up that division?
Well, the stakes are high. This is a game that could define their season. But the good news, they came out of that 49ers game pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And that bye week couldn't come at a better time for this team.
It's going to be crucial for them, right? Time to rest up, get healthy, and, really focus on that Vikings matchup and getting that bye in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's huge.
No doubt. Teams with a bye, they historically do better in the playoffs. Gives them a chance to recharge, scout their opponents, make adjustments. It's like hitting the reset button before the biggest games of the year.
Right. So even with the defense being a question mark, the bye week, and the possibility of a home playoff game, that could be what pushes them to a deep playoff run. Do you think they have what it takes? Can they make a real run at the Super Bowl?
It's possible. I mean, they've got the offense to compete with anybody. And if they could just shore up that defense, even a little, they could be a really dangerous team in the playoffs.
So what would you consider a successful season for the Lions at this point? Is it Super Bowl or bust? Or are there, other benchmarks that would be a step forward for this franchise?
That's a good question. Expectations have definitely changed as the season's gone on. Early on, just making the playoffs.
Yeah.
That would have been huge.
Which they've already done.
Right, making the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's not a small thing.
Yeah.
Especially considering where this franchise has been.
For sure.
But now, with the NFC North title in reach, the potential bye, the bar's been raised, a deep playoff run, maybe even a conference championship appearance. Not out of the question.
It's amazing how far they've come. They've built a new identity, a new culture of winning. You can just feel it.
They've given their fans something to believe in again. And in a city like Detroit, that means a lot.
Speaking of belief, gotta give the 49ers some credit, even in a loss. George Kittle, he had a pretty big milestone in this game, didn't he?
He did, breaking 1,000 receiving yards for the 4th time in his career. That's impressive. That puts him in elite company. Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski, Jason Witten, some of the all-time greats.
Yeah. It's easy to overlook individual achievements in a loss, but that's a big accomplishment. He's a cornerstone of that 49ers offense.
Absolutely. And he keeps producing at a high level. Even in a loss, there are always individual bright spots. It reminds us that every player has their own story, their own journey. And even when the team doesn't reach its goal, there are still individual triumphs to celebrate.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into the Lions' victory, what's the main takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think it's this. The Detroit Lions. They're a team on the rise. They're capable of playing with anyone. Their offense is explosive, and even with the defensive struggles, they find ways to win.
Yeah.
And as they head into the playoffs, that resilience, that never-give-up attitude, it's going to be crucial.
They've proven they can handle adversity. Now they have a chance to write their own story in the postseason.
It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure. And we'll be right here breaking it all down.
But we want to hear from you, too. What are your predictions for the Lions' playoff run? Can they go all the way? Head over to our social media pages and share your thoughts. We'll be looking for those insightful and entertaining comments.
You know, it's funny. As we've been kind of dissecting this Lions team, their whole journey this season, I keep thinking back to that soundbite from Coach Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Early on, remember, when he talked about, like, biting a kneecap off.
Oh, yeah. The infamous kneecap quote.
Right. It definitely got everyone's attention.
It did.
Became kind of a rallying cry, for the team, for the city.
For some people, they might have dismissed it as just like coach speak. But I don't know, I kind of think it speaks to something about this team. Their grit, their determination. Like they've really embraced that underdog role.
Yeah, there's definitely a tenacity there, a refusal to back down. Might not always be pretty to watch, but they're playing with an intensity, a physicality, something that's been missing in Detroit, for a long time.
And speaking of intensity, Jahmyr Gibbs, he had a breakout game against the 49ers. His next-gen stats, off the charts. Did you see those?
I did. Gained the second most yards before contact of his career in that game. Tells you something about his vision, his burst, the O-line doing work, creating those running lanes. He's a dynamic player, that's for sure. Adds a whole other dimension to that already potent Lions offense.
It's kind of scary to think what this offense could become. If they can keep this core group together, keep developing, they could be really special.
The future's bright, that's for sure. But as we know, the NFL, it's a week-to-week league, nothing's guaranteed. And the Lions, they'll face their share of challenges.
But that's what makes it so exciting, right? The unpredictability, the drama. Any team can come out on top. And right now, the Lions are right there in the mix.
They've defied expectations all season long. Proven they belong. Yeah. Now they have a chance to really show the world what they can do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this. Don't sleep on the Detroit Lions. They might just be the most dangerous team in the NFL. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And we'll be back next week breaking down all the action from Week 18.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made up.